Stanford University.
It's a great privilege to be here, and not only was Larry a professor in my first year here, but Professor Bernie Roth, who's in the front as well. So you're going to hear from him tonight. So he's going to try to not. He said he's not going to make the mistakes I make right now. So he's going to school. Anyway, design thinking is a phrase that started by David Kelly, one of my classmates at Stanford, and he started what is now IDEO, and had all his friends come join him at first, and I was luckily one of the first to come join him. So this is my 30th year at IDEO. So let's just talk about what IDEO is and what design thinking is. And I have a lot of pictures and some images, little videos that will hopefully give you a good idea of how we approach design thinking. This is a phrase that David, along with his colleagues like Bernie, made up in the last 4 or 5 years to talk about this process. We're about 30 years old now, 550 people, many nationalities, and 8 offices, including London and Munich. I understand many of you are from Europe, and we've opened a Shanghai office in the last 3 or 4 years as well. So things have been thriving, although this is, like you might expect, a rather hard year. Things are coming back slowly, but well. So I'm lucky enough to be, in the last few years, to be in the health and wellness side of the business, helping guide that. And you can see health and wellness, consumer experience, service, environments, and software and transformation. These are more or less the focus of our business as a design consultancy, innovation consultancy. The output of the company kind of goes in this, almost everything can be in a 2x2 matrix. It seems like we're constantly joking about that. But from at the bottom, tangible innovations where we started, product design, to intangible innovations at the top, brand and strategies. And then on the horizontal axis, we work for large companies and do innovation for their internal audience or staff, if you will, and then more classically, innovation for their customers. And so I'm going to show a bunch of examples just to try to illustrate how we approach innovation. The products, services, environments, and digital experiences, that's sort of the way we describe all these. But we're a bunch of people that are thrilled when we get a chance to design new things, new experiences, and that's the root of our company and our kind of joy. And our roots are from here at Stanford, and we've spread out to many other areas of the world, as you saw. Many thousands of clients and products and projects over the day. So the word design is everywhere these days. It's almost become overused. It's become to mean different things over the years, but these days, when you talk about innovation, you're talking about design instead of just technology, as in the last couple of decades. Design is more than just appearance. It's more than just form. It's beyond the material. It's design thinking has it's attributed to the way designers think. So that's the phrase design thinking. And there was a good quote by the dean of the School of Management at the University of Toronto. Business people don't need to understand designers better, they need to be designers. And that's kind of the focus of the design school, the D school here, and kind of the philosophy behind IDEO. Because not only do we work as designers and innovators, we drag our clients along, usually pretty willingly, but we collaborate with them. It's not a black box. We found in the last decade or so that when you bring your clients along with you, they own the output much better. And so there's turning your clients into designers has been either a initial first goal or second goal of design projects with clients. So this approach, this kind of thinking can be used to tackle a whole range of problems. These guys made careers out of it. Luckily, we were able to work directly or indirectly with almost everybody except Thomas Edison on this page, but you can probably recognize the others. And this is the way we believe that companies create their future. Here's a little video we've done of a whole series of videos we did for Intel, creating scenarios, imagining how their next generation of low-power microprocessors would be used. This is making technology real. What are the experiences and interactions? And this was just part of a big suite of videos imagining a future. One thing to note is this: we did this before the iPhone came out, so you can see some interesting visionary going on by the design team here. There's a future vision project for HBO, Home Box Office. And Home Box Office relationship with their customers was indirect through cable companies. And this IDEO helped HBO envision the future and how it would go direct to consumers, and envision the whole journey, not just the watching of their content, but how you learn about it and plan it, and the environment of watching it and changing it and saving it and sharing it. So that was a successful collaboration with HBO. There's new markets. There's a whole a relationship with and project with Shimano. They came to us and said, you know, our high-end markets seem to be successful, but our overall business is slowly fading, and they're more or less the Intel inside of bicycle components. They don't make bicycles themselves, but they make the components. So the challenge was, how do you raise the tide? The rising tide raises all boats. And where are opportunities to increase all their, in this case, their customers' businesses? These are all the bike manufacturers. And so looking at what people seem to need, what came out of this, where there's 100 million people in the U.S. that don't bike anymore. They used to as children, but biking on 3/4 inch tires, or thin, stiff, hard seats, or with things that had 27 gears and lots of controls, that just wasn't, people didn't do that. It was confusing. They weren't going to buy a $3,000 bike. And most of the time, the regular bike they had had flat tires and would catch their pants. So what could be a better design? And so out of that relationship came this architecture, or this reference design for a simple, fun bike where you're sitting upright, run flat tires, you can't catch your pants, there are no levers, it's a coasting brake, and there's a kind of a little bit of magic under the hood. There, in the front hub is a little generator which generates power only when it's underway, and it powers a 3-speed actuator to allow an automatic shift of 3 speeds. So it's simple to ride up and down small hills. Just meant for fun as much as for utility, and certainly not for racing. So a dozen manufacturers have adopted this design and put their own spin on it, but this allowed Shimano to have a better business and happier customers. So this was kind of an interesting way that we see ourselves working for sort of major players in industries where you're trying to set up reference designs. Let's see if we can get this a little video here. Oh, I don't think it has sound. This was a bit off their website. not only was there the bicycles themselves, but websites to help people know where to go ride safely and what the experience might be. On your mark, get set, meander was their slogan. Trek was one of the biggest recipients of this. They've had the most success with their line of a bike called the Lime. And so new products, another approach, yellow. Maybe some of you have a yellow power meter from Germany. Yellow is one of the larger energy companies in Germany, and this was an engagement to make your use of energy, that could be gas or utilities, water, electricity, make it real, make it understandable. You can't change habits. You can't be more sustainable if you don't know what things are. Their slogan was shift from the black box to an open book, so that consumers of energy can see what their habits are and then change them. Everything was written out in many different kinds of energy units. You had your choice, but the most popular one was the output was in euros, so that you go directly on a person's pocketbook. Marvelous product design and interaction design here to have users understand what their energy usage was. New services. So this was the experience blueprint for the American Red Cross. And the Red Cross asked IDEO to help them improve the donor experience for all their mobile systems. And this centered on the trucks that carried equipment to areas and set it up for a number of days or a week. And so a lot of understanding of the whole tactical approach to this, and prototyping and experimenting and testing and observing. There are lots of tactical improvements with kits that could be quickly unloaded and set up, so you'd have stations and privacy and places to take information and carefully move from one area to another, so there was a comfortable experience and good throughput. But the real aha came when this is an altruistic experience. This isn't really a classic business. So the real challenge was, how do you actually encourage people to come back and to actually grow the donor base? And so the aha came from listening to some people with their stories when their medical records were taken. Some people tell about why they came, and that was an accidental output. But what came out of that was part of the program was a slot called Why I Give, and so there was a careful.
It does make me feel more that I am at a blood drive. This is more of a professional setting as opposed to dreary and mechanical looking and blood trunks all over the place that really don't look like blood trunks.
The board, the Why I Give board, they'll have their picture on it and a brief explanation of why they gave, and possibly they gave for a parent or a brother or a sister who had to receive blood at one time. And I think other people reading that will give them ideas, and maybe they'll want to give it next time. So I think it'll be a good impact on the younger donors.
I think it's great being able to read someone else's personal life about why they donate. Gives you more reason to donate, really. Gives you more of a reason to.
I think that they'll enjoy sharing, and that's going to be a better experience. And hopefully we'll make people, come back and give time and time.
So that was kind of the kicker. I mean, the tactical design, the look, the feel, the way it unfolded and folded back up, and the stations, all that was good. But to make a project like this really great, you have to flip over to some emotional connection. And this Why I Give board that showed people their motivation has created more of a pull, more of a connection to everyone else. You see, oh, that's why I do it, or that's why they do it. And this has been a very successful part of this program. That's the kind of aha that hope that this design thinking process ideally results in. New business models. This was the Nokia N-Gage gaming system on Nokia's smartphones. And the whole idea was to connect people to kind of reinvent the gaming experience for these kinds of phones and improve the user experience. But the aha was sort of out of the design process was the seamless shifting between gaming, social communications, and working. Today's generation seems to be able to do that much better than ours, and so this was an aha for that company. New applications for technology. Hewlett-Packard asked us to help them develop a simple wireless transaction device to allow people in remote villages and developing nations, especially Africa, to conduct business. And the kind of aha here was to make this simple, somewhat very rugged system that had a way to, an underlay that you could quickly change the language and go from village to village or from country to country and have a very convertible device. This was Hewlett-Packard. New ways of connecting with consumers. So Bank of America came to us and said, more or less like many people do, help us look for new opportunities. Our products are commodities. I mean, that's kind of, there's a bit of a blanket statement there. Many clients come and have more or less this issue. So what are new opportunities? Where can we fill needs that are out there that are not filled now? And so through a bunch of observations, understanding, and research, some things come up. You don't know what they are worth. You just notice, trends, or you notice things that are kind of interesting because some people are doing it this way. And one thing we noticed was people writing up their checkbooks to an even number, and paying their bills with slightly over up to an even number. And this one thing allowed it easier accounting and balancing, but it also, some people just said it made them feel better. They're a little ahead of the game, or just their mother did it, and I don't know why, but I do it now too. And so we noticed that it wasn't exactly consistent, but we noticed enough people doing it. So, well, what could we do with that? And out of that brainstorming came, well, let's have people opt into that, and they can put that in a savings account. That's what people desire, to save money. And so this became a feature of Bank of America. It's called Keep the Change. So they round up your transactions and put that money into a savings account, and it's created a pull for millions of new consumers and customers, and billions of dollars saved. So it's been a success by many measurements now.
That's good.
Redesigning systems. Now, I'd say 100% of people in this room have experienced this when flying. Up here at the upper left, this decade has been a torture to travel with lines and just the whole experience. I remember going through and thinking, gosh, I wish we'd get a chance to redesign this. Well, we did, actually, and it's just starting to roll out. So we've worked through TSA and have changed many parameters, worked with the over 60,000 TSO workers to change their habits, their uniforms, the layout of the lines, and the lighting, just the whole experience is, it's rolling out in a couple of airports now, but it's underway. And the real goal was to de-stress people and calm the whole experience down. And a benefit of that is people who don't seem to be calming down or are still stressed, this might be a reason to take note. And so this has been an increase potentially in the efficiency of security as well. Again, the whole idea is what's the experience, but what can come out of a better experience sometimes is more than you even hope for. This is the Forteo pen. I've been in the health side of business, so I'm likely to get to talk about some of our newer products, but this is a delivery system for osteoporosis drugs by Eli Lilly. It's quite complex, but it was made to be simple in operation, comfortable to use and to hold, and it improves efficiency and reduces mistakes for daily dose over a 24-month period. And here's a series of all the prototypes from A to B. But the real advancement past the product design was this starter kit system that allowed people to understand techniques for remembering to take your medication and making a note when you did so you could see back, did I take it or not? And so this has improved adherence significantly, and so there's a much better outcome after this 24-month period of requirement of this osteoporosis drug. So this was, again, kind of connecting to people's habits and allowed people to check themselves and improve their behavior, if you will. Another interesting medical device that used some great design thinking approach was for a startup called ICED'09. And this was trying to give vaccines in a needleless method. If you rubbed off a small amount of skin, not very significant, a patch would be allowed, of drugs would be allowed to go into the bloodstream. So a whole series of prototypes, and the eventual solution was a kind of a special little snap dome like you have on keyboards, but if you pushed in, the force was very carefully controlled and allowed a little bit of medical grade sandpaper, if you will, to move right across the arm or wherever you're applying it, and a little bit of ink was left there so you could target a patch. And over a few hour period, this delivered a vaccination, and it's been clinical trials have been going well, and the company has been bought by a European company, Intercell, and it looks like this could be a successful strategy for delivering vaccinations, especially where you can't refrigerate them, or you can distribute them in a mass manner for epidemics. Reaching unserved people. This was a project inside the company done after hours by people entering a contest for how to better serve people in developing nations, to help water to be purified. So this was a bicycle made that purified water. And I'll show you a little video here if this works.
1.1 billion people in the world don't have access to clean water. Over 5,000 children die each day because of water-related diseases. Our solution is the Aqueduct, a pedal-powered vehicle that transports water and filters it while in motion. Often water sources are distant, and women must devote hours of labor just to meet the basic needs of their families. Walking 3 miles or more is common. Traveling this distance via motorbike or truck consumes fuel and pollutes the air. Moreover, a family of 4 needs a minimum of 20 gallons of water per day. Sanitizing this much water by boiling consumes precious resources and contributes to deforestation. The aqueduct enables a person to get enough water for an entire family and clean it in one trip.
The aqueduct is composed of 2 tanks, a filter, a belt drive, a peristaltic pump, and a clutch connected to an idler pulley. Once the rider arrives at the water source, she fills the large tank at the back of the vehicle with water. The cap is replaced and the rider can start home. As the rider pedals, the peristaltic pump draws the water from the large tank through a filter to a 2-gallon clean tank. Upon arrival, the clean water tank is easily removed and taken inside the home for drinking and cooking needs. The closed container eliminates the contamination that currently occurs from storage in open containers. When more filtered water is needed, the clean water tank is reattached. Then the rider flips a clutch that relieves the tension in the belt and disengages the pedals from the wheels. She can now filter the next 2 gallons while stationary. The aqueduct would allow families in developing countries to have daily access to clean water, all by harnessing the energy of pedal power.
Fun to watch. So what is design thinking? Just to kind of talk about some of our definitions. Human-centered approach to innovation. These 3 circles show up a lot, where there's desirability, viability, and feasibility with people, business, and technical factors. Design thinking works and starts typically with the desirable parts of a problem, a need, an issue. And where these 3 issues are balanced, we find is where innovation occurs. There are 3 phases as we look at this. There's inspiration, ideation, and implementation, and we have a number of different diagrams. We're always coming up with different ways to write this up. Sometimes it's a little linear and a circle of iteration for brainstorming, prototyping, refining. Sometimes it's this MERV sort of approach. It's a new one where you're starting from concrete and going to abstract and coming back to solutions. Other times you're just looking at examples of inspiration, ideation, and implementation. From initial inspiration, you're looking at people, you're looking for insights, and you're going out and you're trying to understand what people need. Nobody is smart enough to know what is needed, no matter how experienced you are. In fact, things change so quickly that you can only be good at the process, we found. You can never really know what people need. So starting with people, starting with empathy, what do people feel? That's one of the key things that we end up looking for. It's looking for people. There was a fellow who tried to understand what a patient's perspective was during a day. So we sat there and filmed everything that happened. And a lot of the filming was the ceiling, it turns out. So, how do you understand people on different levels? This cognitive, emotional, and physical, with emotional being kind of the key. This little diagram is, you can see, you can listen to people. More importantly is what they do, because they often contradict what they are saying with what they're doing. To get at what they're thinking and feeling. One example that pops to mind is we were doing some work with television viewing habits, and one person claimed, we went to their home. Going into context is absolutely critical. And this person said, well, I really don't watch any TV. I just don't have time. And at that point, there were 3 TVs on in their house. And we kind of said, well, what's that? Well, I'm not watching those. That's just background noise. So you have to really, what people are doing is really the key. And then noticing that with kind of this sort of a Zen mind, not making any judgments, just noting it and being mindful. And then looking at extreme users. Our approach is to look at sort of the 20 for the 80 or the 10 for the 90, where our clients often have very good market research organizations, but that's fine, you need that. But for our style and for design thinking, looking at people that are kind of the outliers, the oddballs, the people that are doing workarounds or changing, they're doing things they don't even necessarily understand or realize, but you get ideas by looking at these. And so this was some of the research for a company from Switzerland, Xylus, where they asked us to redesign their whole line and invent new kitchen implements for them. And so we're looking at people who are in wheelchairs, people trying to teach their children how to cook, professionals, people with just wooden implements, people with every implement you can imagine, people with only 3 implements. So we're just trying to see where we're the kind of oddballs and get inspiration. And out of that came 30 different types of designs and 10 patents where we, one of the most iconic ones is right up here in this one. I don't know if I can see, that's a pizza cutter. That's one of their icons where you press straight through the axle to cut your pizza instead of a force at a distance wheel on a stick. So we look at analog and analogous situations. This was a redesigning, looking for ways to redesign the experience for the practitioners in an operating room. And we looked at race car pit stops where there was a lot of redundancy, and there was a real script, and there was redundant people and equipment, and got some good ideas on how to change that. So getting out there and looking and listening and trying things, lying down in a mock-up of an airplane and see what it might feel like, or shopping, or being a patient. The ideation, the brainstorming part of brainstorming of ideation is key, with a few key guidelines here, and use Post-its. If you use Post-its, you'll be much more successful behind. We wish we had invented Post-its. It's an amazing how useful and versatile, and how often you use them, every few minutes in your day. Building to think, prototyping, in groups and as part of brainstorming. It's very useful and critical. Learn by prototyping. Up on the upper top of this slide was a design team and surgeons looking at how to hold a surgical instrument, and that key concept went through the whole year of development and ended up as part of the approach for this instrument. Many hundreds of prototypes. This was the Palm 5 set of some of the prototypes for the 5. Prototypes don't have to be physical; they must be tangible. This was some prototype of a hotel lobby, and it was put in Second Life and was simulated, and they actually had parties in there for everyone's avatars, and took polls on what the experience was like. Soft prototypes for media controllers, or for phones. Before you made that phone physically, you can look at pressing what controls you can press. For McDonald's, looking for inspiration, making prototypes, and looking for trying things, and then experimenting with this sort of an ATM approach to buying your McDonald's hamburgers. Implementation, using storytelling. There's all sorts of ways. There's a lot of videos that are being made these days in our business as a part of displaying and using prototypes. So you see the context and you get the feeling of the way people work. And making storyboards. This is the Amtrak Excella train customer journey. And what happens after what happens? What's the journey? What's the sequence of things that often happen? Not just one part, not just the riding. So that out of that came various parts of the experience, including the interior. Working for Kaiser Permanente, our big health provider in this Bay Area, looking at the spaces, tools, roles, processes for what happens when a nurses change shifts. There's a lot of issues and problems around that, and there's a lot of improvement using this process, involving the nurses themselves to help this overlap, so there's less information dropped and less mistakes. And sometimes the story is the end result for displaying what the ideas are and explaining to the rest of your company. So here's a little last video.
So, I started this job as a data manager a few years ago, and I was looking into this whole thing about RFID tags, that we need to put on pallets and stuff. And I was working with the pork guys in Excel and trying to figure out, how to amp up sales a little bit, or just find ways in which our customers can do more with pork. And I was talking with a Cat for Piggly Wiggly Markets, and I was seeing that the sales of their pork chops in Wisconsin was a lot lower than figures I was seeing from the distribution centers coming out of Minnesota. And I was thinking, hey, what's the difference in these markets? Can you tell the difference between a guy from Minnesota from a guy over from Wisconsin unless you look at the driver's license? So I looked at the inventory turn figures that we were getting from the RFID data going out of the plants, and I saw that the product going to Minnesota was the pump pork, and the stuff going to Wisconsin was the unpumped pork. And I thought that maybe I should tell the guy from Piggly Wiggly we picked up a trend here in the past few days, and So he says to me, how do you know? And I told him, I don't know why people in Minnesota are suddenly into pumped pork, but I did know that our figures of inventory turn are a lot more accurate than they were before we said with the RFID system. And you just gotta trust me in this one. So he tries it out and bam, sales of pork go up in Wisconsin and he's a happy camper. What happened this weekend with the heat wave and all? I was doing the usual thing of checking out the flow of sales of pork across the country. And within an hour, I get 2 calls from 2 different buddies who were telling me, hey, we're firing up the grill this Saturday, bring the beer. Well, I can only go to one, so I say to Don, who's the first guy to call, I say, was he grilling? He says he's throwing on some pork chops. I was like, yeah, it's the first real spring weekend. I bet there are a lot of people throwing chops in the grill. And then it hit me. I looked at the turn figures over the past few days, and I saw there was a real spike in orders in the west, like in Arizona, while Minnesota and the Midwest were still flat. So I looked at the weather map and saw there was a heat wave slowly moving east. In the warm places like Tucson, where it already hit, sales are going up because people are getting all jazzed about the first barbecue of the season. So I looked at the internal weather forecast program and saw that the heat wave was set to Wisconsin by Friday, and this was Tuesday. I looked at the figures of pork going out to Wisconsin and saw that in the past couple of days they were the same as always. So I call our Piggly Wiggly guy and I say, dude, I bet you can move a lot of pork this weekend if you want to. And he was all, how did you know? And I told him about the barbecue thing and the weather thing. He was like, okay, you were right the last time, so what do you think? And I just said, all I know is that you're going to sell a lot of pork this weekend if you've got it on the shelves. So he hooks up with the customer and they say, okay, and they run a feature set for Friday on their Tender Choice product. The Cat guy then calls up Wichita sales and amps up his order of pork by about 20% on Wednesday for the stuff to arrive on Friday. And then the heat wave hits and people are buying pork like crazy and the stuff is flying off the shelves and other stores are running out, but he's got plenty. And the store's happy because their customers are happy because they got all the pork they need for the queue. It was awesome.
Example of making something stick was fun, but this was a scenario of what could happen. This wasn't reporting, so it was the output of an innovation project. So just the last slide or so, to human-centered approach to innovation is how we look at it at its core. It includes people as a source of inspiration, prototyping and building to think in stories rather than concepts. What's the context? How do you present it? So I appreciate this. It's an honor to just talk about all these little stories. I think I'm the only thing holding between you and lunch right now, which is always dangerous. But maybe there's a chance, I'll ask Phil or Larry if there's a chance for a question or two, and then I'll spend some time with you at lunch, hopefully.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.